Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Chiron conjunct one's natal Pluto. When we're talking about transits that involve Chiron, they can be about physical and emotional wounds and suffering, helping and healing. Remember that Chiron is considered the wounded healer because it can reflect areas that we could help and heal others that we may not be able to help ourselves in. And when transit Chiron conjoins one's natal Pluto, well, this may manifest in some cases as physical and emotional wounds and suffering, helping and healing. It could be in matters with death. It could be where we're simply trying to give moral, emotional, or support to somebody that might have experienced a death of a prominent person in one's life scheme, whether it might be a family member or a close friend. It could be about healing in terms of like a figurative death, an ending of something in our life or somebody else's life. We might be helping them deal with it, whether it could be the end of a career or some home or family situation or a situation with a neighbor. It can be something, I mean, really, virtually anything. So the thing about this too is that remember that, I mean, this could also be a time, an opportune time for self-healing, but that if say for example, I mean, I would say especially if transit Chiron is retrograde, because that often can indicate self-healing. Now also Pluto is connected with transformation and major change. So this could be a time where it might be, I mean, it might be going through, it might be more of an arduous task or laborious effort to try to make that major change, but we could also have an opportunity to help others in doing so. I mean, if you have this, let's say, in the first house, it could be the major change, in the physical body. It might require, a certain amount of, I mean, it's going to require perhaps a certain amount of work. But the thing about this is it could be again about healing ourselves, and it can be, let's say, again, if it's in the first or even the sixth house, it could be something connected physically where we might make a transformation. Say, especially the first house is the physical body, sixth house can be connected with physical health and debilitations. But the thing is, it could also be, I mean, looking at this transit, I mean, Pluto is also connected with crisis. So it might be something where we might be going through a little bit more anguish and trying to deal with a crisis at this time. If it's, again, going back to the first or sixth house in the natal chart, if it falls in one of those houses, it could be something, physical, health related issue that one may be dealing with. If it's an Aquarius, for example, it might be something with the nerves or some with the ankles or shins or circulation. Uh, it can be something too. Pluto is also connected with power and control. So this might be a time where we might be involved in self-healing, involving getting power and control back in our lives. And if you have, like, I mean, say if you have Pluto retrograde natally, I mean, that could be gaining that really about gaining that reclamation of power, and it could further reinforce getting the control back in one's life. And I would say, especially if you have, transit Chiron again is retrograde, it can be about self-healing. Remember that conjunctions in astrology are neutral. They can have good and bad expression, and sometimes you might have, like, you have a combination of both when you have a transit like this, but a lot of it, whether it manifests more positively or negatively, of course, could be predicated and dependent on the aspects that it makes to other points in your natal chart. Now, the thing about this too is that keep in mind that Pluto is also about obsession and fixation. So in some cases, it can reflect suffering, perhaps it's connected with being overly obsessed or fixated on something. You might ask, well, how can that be? Well, the thing about it is, if one becomes overly fixated or obsessed on an issue or some situation or person, it might dominate, monopolize their time, and where they could have been doing something productive and something else, and something else may be, thrown under the rug basically and forgotten about, which could have been done, which could have been, something more productive if that was actually accomplished, and um, might have had more positive dividends for you. Basically, it would have had more of been more beneficial to have done that. It could have just been something simple as, cleaning the house or filing the taxes, and it could be repercussions as a result of letting some other things go in order to be obsessed and fixated on something. Now, another thing too is that Pluto, of course, could be associated with rebirth and regeneration. So this could be that time where you may be able, maybe an opportune time to revive something in your life. It could be a career. It may be, something with your employment or your health, or resurrect a family situation if you were dissident or there was dissension in the family. Say if it's in the fourth house, maybe this is a time to revive that situation, or it could even be going through certain suffering, um, or really, it can be more work sometimes when you feel is necessary to try to, to revive something, or some cases too. I mean, the thing about this too is, anatomically speaking, Pluto is associated with the prostate, colon, bladder, reproductive system. So it can be a time where there can be suffering in these matters. I mean, something connected, that's anatomically connected with Pluto, as what I just stated. And especially say if this falls in the first or sixth house in your natal chart, because again, the first house corresponds with the physical body. Sixth house can be connected with physical health issues and debilitations, and but it can be a time too. I mean, Pluto is also connected with coercion and bullying, so it can be a time where there may be some anguish going through that situation, or it can also be a time to heal if you had gone through that previously, even if it was 5 or 10 years ago, or was a time when you were in, say you were in high school. You might have be lamenting over something like that. Still, this is the time to do maybe what's necessary. It could be a very opportune time to actually take care of that, and try to, eliminate that memory the best you can and heal yourself somehow, whether it's through prayer or what have you. Pluto is also connected with obliteration and destruction. So this could be the time where you might be trying to, maybe help somebody else, heal somebody else by helping eliminate something in one's life. If it's in the 12th house, for example, it could be fears. It can be some restrictions or limitations that might be connected with self-sabotage, but could also be about it manifesting helping yourself in that area too. Perhaps whether it's eliminating something that might be to your detriment in your life, or it might be helping heal yourself with something that had ended and gaining more acceptance of it and moving forward from that point. Pluto also could be connected with insurance and taxes. So this could be a time where something may, come back up. For example, you might, owe something that you didn't expect on taxes or insurance, that might cause some monetary suffering. Say, especially if this is like say if it's in the second house or Venus is involved, if you have a conjunct Venus as an example, or even adverse Venus. It might be something where you might be paying something monetarily on this, and there might be some suffering connected with that. But anyway, now when you have this transit, it could also manifest in the deepest wound that you might be experiencing, might be associated with something with control or power or even manipulation. It can be something where you may have been manipulated by somebody, or might be dealing with a power struggle with somebody, or just a lack of power control in a situation in your life. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, it could be like, say if this falls in, say if it falls in fifth house, in Capricorn in the fifth house as an example. Maybe there's something you're dealing with, some sorrow connected with being manipulated, which is Pluto, by a lover, which is the fifth house. And it could be somebody that may have just been looking after her or her own interests, where their interests simply took precedence over others, including your own, which could be Capricorn energy. Now, it could also be a time where you may find yourself helping and healing others simply through moral, emotional, or monetary support. If this falls in Aquarius and in the fourth house as an example, it could be through some, monetary. Uh, it could be through some monetary support that you may give, which can include, and Pluto is about support. It could be through something electronic or computers, which is Aquarius, and for one's home, safety, and security, which of course is associated with the fourth house. It could be setting up some kind of a computer high-tech alarm system where people feel safe from potential burglars or robbers coming into their home. At time, remember that Chiron is also connected with diminished self-esteem or self-worth. So this transit may be expressed in, could be diminished self-esteem or self-worth. It could be due to being bullied. It could be coercion, some kind of intimidation. Um, it might be something, say if it's in the sixth house, as an example, it could be through something in the, your workplace, your place of employment. It might be in your daily routine. And Chiron is also associated with ineptitude. It could be an area where at least we feel we're inept, and sometimes it may manifest in an area where we are, always, we don't exactly flourish. Now, say, and it could be an ineptitude one may at least feel in going deep, going beyond subterfuge and superficiality, inability to research deeply into something. Doesn't necessarily mean that the person doesn't have the mental capability of researching deeply, but what could happen is it might be something where a person simply didn't take the time to actually research into something deeply and maybe paid some repercussions as a result of not doing so. If it's in the 11th house, for example, it could be a matter, it could be something with a friend or a group, club, or organization. It might have been some corruption connected with one or more of those things. It could be, say, if it's in the 12th house, you might be going through, it could be suffering. Well, I mean, the transit by itself could be suffering in matters with corruption or some criminal activity. Say if it's in the 12th house, it could be being a victim of maybe insurance fraud, as an example. Uh, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.